Politicians and pundits have all sounded off about higher turnout this election. Many are watching to see if that includes greater participation from younger voters, 18 to 24 years old. In past midterm elections, turnout among millennials in that range trailed Gen Xers and baby boomers. Now a new generation is coming of age to cast ballots. That includes Will Fodder, Nadlin Masters, and John Dalton. Our discussion covered why they're motivated to vote and how they're encouraging their peers to do the same. How are we doing here at the University of Arizona when it comes to engaging the younger voter?
Yeah, I think we're doing really well. I think student government really made it a point this year to kind of get students engaged. We have early voting that started mid-October and is going to the November 2nd. So really trying to have avenues for students to get involved and to be politically active.
I think that voter engagement should not necessarily be a partisan issue. I think that the lack of enfranchisement and lack of voting amongst millennials is such a problem that we need to approach it in a bipartisan manner in order to effectively empower young people.
Nadlin, you really have your ear to the ground on this campus. Do you hear from students who say, you know, issues, as Will mentioned, the really emotional ones, I don't want to associate with a party, I just want to focus on the issue?
Yeah, I think definitely. I think students are, especially nowadays, are really not wanting to be put into boxes, and so they're really wanting to be active and learn more about these policies and stand up against specific issues instead of actually like a party.
What are some of the issues that are most important to college Republicans?
Well, in regards to President Trump specifically, just getting the truth out about his policies and where he stands, but also, like we were just talking about, you know, issues. A lot of what you see going on is people trying to like be involved more or less in movements as opposed to the parties. So like with Trump, Make America Great Again. And you could say the same thing when President Obama ran. It was, you know, hope and change. And with a lot of these, you come with, you get a lot of support and obviously a lot of opposition, and people become more engaged. And sometimes, yeah, people pay more attention to the issues, which brings them to the party, whether it be Democrat or Republican.
You just mentioned President Trump, and Will, we had Bernie Sanders on campus.
We are going to make public colleges and universities tuition free.
Does that do enough to draw out the young voter who's still wondering, should I be involved in this one?
Full disclosure, I am not a Bernie fan.
Okay.
Okay, just to preface what I'm about to say. He does really speak to the young people and motivate them in a way that I think is good. I mean, I think any way to get young people out there is good.
There's often a perception that you guys don't vote because you're too busy with school, there's too much going on. And sometimes some of the older folks like myself will say, well, we also have work, we have kids, we have mortgages, we have things, we make time. Why doesn't the younger voter make time? John, you want to start?
Well, I think a lot of it has to do with, you know, school, of course, like we were just saying, but a lot of younger people normally aren't really necessarily politically engaged, or they find it too hard to just, you know, fill out all the applications to, you know, whether it be changing their residency to Arizona and that process. For local people, sometimes they're here at the university, they come from Phoenix, and they don't know if they should change their voter registration to here. You know, will it really matter? Does it count? And it does. It does count. It does matter.
They don't want to take that extra time to do it because they kind of get lost in these websites of how to actually register to vote. But I think that they're inclined to, like I said earlier, about issues. And so I think our generation has political issues right at the forefront because they're always on our phone. It's social media driven. And so I think students are wanting to get involved. They're just trying to find which avenues to do that.
Well, it sounds like commitment is an issue because we come here for 4 years and we think, I don't know if, you know, this is going to last or how long I'm going to be around. Any things that you could actually say to students that would make them say, all right, I do want to do this because I know it's important?
I think that since the Clinton years, we've actually just become so polarized and so bitter and vituperative against one another that my generation has always grown up having politics be broken, essentially. It's always cascading the other side and trying to portray them as this horrible enemy. And I think we need to focus on public policy, and that'll appeal to the students, focus on issues rather than party. You've
brought up polarization before, and I think each one of you has as well, but you're the next generation. You're that population that can help change that. What do we need to understand about what's coming next and how we should have these civilized discussions to disagree with each other?
Yep. Well, a lot comes to kind of like what we're doing here, just kind of like an open forum and civil debate. And by having that, I think it makes the issues maybe even more connected to us. And the younger generation are more focused on seeing where we agree than disagree. And we also see these swings in the political spectrum all the time where you have a swing towards more a divided nation as opposed to, you know, people having civil conversation, kind of like you see with like John McCain. You know, at one point he was very popular within the Republican Party, and then he swung, you know, well, the party swung in a different direction, more of a separated and divided party and even nation, and you see more resistance to people like him or a Jeff Flake. I think we'll see very soon a swing back towards more civil politics.
Will, are both sides guilty of doing that?
I think a lot of it has to do with constant access to the media, because it's easy to get attention when you can just call someone an idiot versus actually sitting down and having a discussion with them. And then I think it's okay to vehemently disagree with someone if you can just respect their motivations for believing what they believe. So I think just we need to return back to civility and compassion rather than just this Manichean idea of like two opposing sides just duking it out.
Nadlin, you're a politician on campus.
Yeah.
How do you manage these sorts of discussions? Because they can get nasty and they can be very respectful, but where's that balance?
Yeah, and I think student government plays an important role in that. So we, as student government, as our entity, are nonpartisan, and so we kind of help foster the debates. We've had students from Young Dems and the College Republicans come talk to us about events they want to host, and we are all about just promoting having access to students to get that information, and so kind of being that happy medium to have those conversations on campus.
Is this that race that will actually generate that younger voter turnout from now on?
Just the social media part of it, there's a lot of conversations about politics now, and there's no way for our generation to escape it because it's on every app that you pull up.
It's in our face more than ever, probably, right, John?
Yes, and I think that we will have the most voter turnout from the youth vote that you've seen maybe in the past. I think this will be kind of the start to it.
Do you three hope that one of these days you won't get that flack for being the younger voter? That at some point you'll just be the voter who's engaged and educated about the issues?
Oh, absolutely. I think that's something that I think we're all going towards, instead of getting rid of that stereotype that young voters always have, is that we're here, we have opinions, we care about the politics that are going to be affecting us, and we're going to vote.
We'll always be called the younger voters, but there'll be ups and downs, but I think ultimately they'll be more engaged to the fact as how to get our votes as opposed to how to get us to vote.
I feel like politicians need to appeal to millennials in a way that speaks to them and the issues that they're cared about, which again is less fealty to the party structure and more issue-oriented. So I feel like once they figure out a way to target that, that'll really help with voter engagement efforts. But then I also yearn to shed the stereotype of the young voter as well.
True. Okay, my thanks to all of you. Really appreciate it.
Thanks.